Welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophie, your pilot into the universe of Chinese. And let's review what we came across this week. And I really, really like this week's message because we start with Gap. Not the clothing brand Gap, but the gap in between. And I would argue our life almost like exists in between those gap moments. Because those are the moments that are not yet filled or defined. Those are the moments that we can take a glimpse of what's possible, what's to come. And Chinese express the concept of gap by the moonlight beaming through two-panel doors. Take a moment to let that sink in. How observant language creators use. Because otherwise, without the moonlight, without the dark light contrast, we probably wouldn't be able to tell the gap in between two doors. And that frame gives you the sense of not only gap in between two doors, but possibilities of opening the doors, right? And the light, the whole world behind those doors. So gap in Chinese express space and time. We have both 时间 and 空间, time and space, literally in contemporary Chinese, that's made of this gap concept in there. I just want to share a little bit of personal story. Long time ago, when I was still working in China, when China opened up to the world and joined the world trade global trade system, I was working with a factory to connect with outside world. So American CEOs visited, and I brought them to local museum. So it was a coastal town. And in the museum, we just randomly walk past by a museum. I mean, at that time, there was no Google map. So I had no clue what's on that street. And random walk to a random gallery, met a random artist who happened to paint with ink and water. And he demonstrated real-time painting. And among all the, gallery paintings, one particular one that caught the eyes of the American CEOs, two of them. And that was an imagery of an old man, kind of squatting on the floor, facing a tiny bird. So the whole wide canvas, all in white, and a few ink strokes of this outline of old man and a bird. The rest of them is white, and only those two characters in there, with a tiny bit of like a color shading to give you a certain background depth and front view. So that imagery can almost give you the sense of what this gap is about in Chinese aesthetics. We leave a lot of blank space, negative space. We leave it there. And that's minimalism. And also this gap, like in between characters, we give it plenty of space in between. So that's spaciousness is related to minimalism. And I think that's an aesthetic that in contemporary Chinese culture or society level, you hardly see. Everything is so busy, so filled up, crowded. And that was the aesthetic that kind of touched the American CEOs who probably came from a very busy life. They're kind of close to their retirement age, and they were touched by the spaciousness in there. And it's very simple frame storytelling. And the focal point is easy, like it just comes at you. You get the full message with a few ink strokes. Okay, 煎. Then we have 煎 plus water. So that's a gap in earth filled with water, ravine. And the letter just like that, ancient version water, 5-stroke. In contemporary, we simplified with 3 strokes. And the panel door, double panel door was simplified in simplified Chinese to this with the dot on the top left corner. it is an interesting thing. I didn't know like who came up with that, but that's the men I learned. And when we have the moon symbol, eventually simplified to sun symbol, because sunlight can also beam through the panel doors. And then this 间 is exactly that, the gap in earth with water in it. And then we have 剪. Now this time this gap is between the bamboo strips. And we have this bamboo strips, drapey leaves, double, because bamboo often comes in clusters. And this bamboo strips was the ancient medium for you to put a message on. And in that episode, if you're interested, you can go back and review that. A letter in today's, like a postcard or letter, quite complicated, right? I mean, today's is easy. You just stamp on it, a flat sheet, envelope, hold a few sheets of paper. Ancient times, the bamboo strips, just the volume of it, it's a lot. And therefore, ancient people practice brevity, succinctness in their choice of words, because it's very expensive and heavy and voluminous. It's different medium. And this is I guess a classical form shapes content. And you have to use the essence, the boiled down version every time to put on message on those strips. So bamboo strips eventually means you say things in brief, in simple way, so that you're not overburdened unnecessary. The bamboo symbol was simplified like this. And it's if you elongate this dot to full length, that's exactly fully spelled 竹. But if you use it as radical, put it on the top, they shortened to this tiny bits, dots over there. So bamboo plus gap is our ancient bamboo strip paper before the invention of paper. Okay, and this 剪 means pleat because it's talking about creating gap, measured, calculated gaps on clothing. And that's our pleating. And you can see this is cropping of two characters independently because probably it was a later invention when the way of pleating introduced to China probably occur after the Xushen's dictionary 2,000 years ago. So there's a pleating as construction of clothing, either decorative and functional because it creates volume. That was definitely after. I haven't time to check exactly when this method came popularity. That's later occurrence. And we can see the clothing symbol was simplified to this narrow strip. And we can see many, many Chinese characters with that because we have a lot of clothing items. And again, the two-panel door. Oh, did I ever explain the two-panel door? The top is a little bit more complicated because here, ancient times, the door panels where you're at your eyesight level, the visitor to the door are going to look at the eye level panel, and therefore that top panel was heavily decorated. I mean, however heavy depends on how much money you want to spend, right? So the top frame of the panel was decorated and the bottom kind of streamlined, the simple panel. So I'm guessing that's why here is the visual depiction of how the panel would look like. And here the Jianda's gap paired with the metal image to create the ancient weaponry as mace. This Jian, again, third tone, this metal thing paired with the gap. So gap metal described as a three-dimensional, four edges sword. So it's kind of a sword, right? It's a flat thing. And then you diagonalize that, not diagonal, perpendicular that to have another edge, double edge. So you have four edges, and that's what 剪 mace is. All right, and then the last one is 线. 线 is this spacious mind. We use gap to to imply the space, that you have gaps in your mind, right? Therefore, you have space that you can develop a new neuron pathways. You can make something new out of yourself, like take in new things. So that's open-mindedness in English. And we use that to describe this person's spaciousness. By being spacious, you can take in a lot of things. You just simply have a bigger capacity to take in the joys and sorrows of life. We pair that with the human figure. And here, notice here, we have the double door frame. It's not simplified. And the simplified version of that didn't exist. The reason why, according to ChatGPT, and I kind of can, I guess, agree as well, because there's a 线. We don't really describe that today on contemporary person. Doesn't mean we're all crowded out by the everyday rat race, seeing that we don't really have much space left. Therefore, this spacious mind concept doesn't even apply to any of us. I don't know, but we don't use that in our everyday. It is through digging through this ancient classical Chinese wording, the way of the characters, and then I came to this. Like, okay, more than 2,000 years ago, this book of poetry already used this character to describe the virtues of a person. You want to be a spacious person. And that's where your majesticness comes from. And you can see this contemporary version and the ancient version, the 2,000 years ago version, looks almost the same, except that this human figure, this is a double vertical line, right? It kind of a little bit wide. So in contemporary version, we anchor one stroke on top of the other so that this is a single vertical line. It kind of narrow down on horizontal direction because Chinese characters, when we pair the left and right structure, we want to shrink. We want to save space, economy of space in this horizontal direction. So here, our spacious week from 尖, 见, 剪, 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 线. Sound kind of similar, but they definitely share the exact same elements in there. And I would argue, people, scholars, ever since the Xushen dictionary that I quoted most often, he came up with the idea of, majority of the Chinese characters were created by have a sound maker and a meaning maker, phono-semantic compounds. So when it's left and right, left is the meaning. This is the water, something about the water. And the right side, the jian, or jian in this case, is the sound maker. And this is to mark the sound of the thing. But I'm saying both sides are meaning maker. And because we have a ton of words paired with the water radical. The water radical simply is a broad category thing, tells you what material that is. Just like, this bamboo, clothing, or gold, or metal, or person. All these are big categories. And within that category are a ton of things. So to describe, to narrow down, to specify what are this, then we add the right side. It's to give you the details about what that's saying. It's not just marking the sound, but it's marking the meaning as well. So I'm arguing majority of the Chinese characters are not just phono-semantic compounds, but they are multi-semantic compounds. So here are the simplifications. These are places where in the 1950s, simplified Chinese got replaced by this more streamlined things that we, like me, at least now, I have to, as a simplified Chinese user born into this simplified version, I lost touch, like literally cut off the, what's it called? Umbilical cord with my culture. And it took me into the adult years to educate myself on what all these about. These are strokes, not just put there, but if we trace to the original meaning, original shape, all of them have so much cultural embedding, values embedding, that only takes years to unpack, and I'm glad I'm sharing this with you. So here, 尖尖尖尖尖线, and even if I translate it as imposing in some context, but the 线 really is majestic. Thank you for your time. See you another week.